All right, what's going on, everybody? So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing 10 different lessons that I've learned from Robert Kiyosaki, who is the author of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book series. They also do coaching, mentoring, training, live events. I think they have a board game, a bunch of different financial education products that teach people how to build wealth, how to become rich. And it's stuff that's really not talked about in traditional education. You would never have a class on like how to start making money in real estate or how to build wealth using this strategy in traditional education. And it's also strategies that aren't really talked about in just in general. So a lot of counterintuitive strategies. So in this video, I'm going to give you 10 different lessons I've learned from him. Okay, lesson number 1 is that financial education is the key to building wealth. And of course, he's going to say that he owns a financial education company, but it makes sense. Look, in building wealth, there are people that have been there and done that. There are people that have gotten rich. And you need to find those people and learn from them. And there are mentors, there are people that share these strategies. You can find them in books, you can find them in events, you can find them in just local people. So he was talking about like when he was getting started in the 60s or 70s in his career, he was just attending different like weekend events. Even in the 60s and 70s, they had like weekend real estate events. He was reading books, he was trying to educate himself as much as he could about different niches of real estate, the stock market, bonds, retirement plans, different things like that. Because most people are just not aware of like the specifics of each niche. Most people just have a kind of a very broad understanding of investing and one that's not really going to build any wealth for them. And nowadays it's much easier. There's YouTube videos like this, there's podcasts, there's obviously lots of different mentors out there, there's books. There's so much information on different investing niches. When I was getting started as a real estate investor, I was learning as much as I could about real estate. I was learning how to find deals, watching YouTube videos. I was listening to podcasts. I actually paid for a mentor as well. And I fully believe in paying for mentors because when you pay for something, you value it a lot more than if you just watch a YouTube video or listen to a podcast. So I was doing all of the above and really trying to educate myself. And people kind of like laughed at me like, why are you doing this? They're just making money off you and whatnot. But now those same people ask me like, hey, how do you find those deals? How do the same people that were making fun of me are now like, oh man, how do I get in on this? So it's kind of interesting. But you want to educate yourself as much as you can. Okay, the second thing he talks about is that history repeats itself. So that's something to keep in mind in terms of economic cycles and where we are in economic cycles. And usually, I believe there's a recession like every 8 to 10 years or something like that. So that's something to keep in mind. When was the last recession? When was the last downturn in the economy? So, roughly about every 10 years, there's going to be a downturn in the market. So that's when you want to be prepared for different opportunities, different buying opportunities that will come about. Which brings me to point number 3, which is when hard times hit, when the downturn in the economy inevitably happens, which it will, roughly every 10 years, you should be ready. You shouldn't see that as a horrible time, You should look at that as a buying opportunity. That's when fortunes are made in down markets. Everyone else is going to be scared, but if you have money on hand, and you should always have some cash available for buying opportunities. I was just listening to Ty Lopez. He was talking about you should have $100,000 saved away in cash just for buying opportunities. And maybe you don't need that much, but you get the point. You should always have some money on hand in terms of buying opportunities or just in terms of anything else if it comes up. Okay, the 4th lesson he talks about is it's okay to fail and make mistakes, ideally small mistakes. So in school and traditional education, you're pretty much taught that like mistakes are the worst thing ever. If you mess up, you fail the class, right? In the real world, it's a little bit different. So mistakes is how you build experience, but you want to start on a small scale. So you don't want to just like, let's say you're doing real estate deals. And I started with real estate investing. I still do a lot of real estate investing. My first deal was not like a 100-unit building in Hawaii. I started with like little flips in my backyard, essentially, where I would sell the rights of the property to a more experienced investor. And then once I started doing those small flips, then I started taking on bigger flips and doing bigger deals. And eventually you scale up to the bigger deals, but you kind of want to work out the kinks on those small deals first so you get a very good understanding of the business before you just try to jump in and do some massive deal. Because you want to have mistakes that are manageable. You don't want a mistake that's going to completely sink you. Okay, the 5th thing that he talks about is building your assets. So he talks about the poor and the middle class They work for their money. They work whatever it is, 40, 50 hours a week and get paid a salary based on that. The rich have assets, so it might be real estate, businesses, stocks, things that are paying them money every single month. So you want to focus really on building your assets. And some ways to build your assets, like rental property would be a good example. Another example would be a stock that pays a dividend, that pays you every single month or quarterly. Other things that could pay you money, I mean, you could be a private lender. There's a lot of crowdsourcing sites out there that essentially pay you depending on how much you invest. But you want to build up as many assets as possible. You want your money working for you. So maybe have a goal of like I want to make $100 in passive income every single month. And then once you hit that goal, try for $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. To eventually where you get to the point where you build up so many assets that you wouldn't need to work anymore if you didn't want to. Okay, so number 6, he talks about work to learn before you work to earn. So when he was getting started, he took a sales job, I think at like Xerox, so he could learn sales processes and he could learn systems. And then he applied a lot of those for his own business. And you can do the same thing. You can take like different part-time jobs, you can try different strategies. Just making this YouTube video, I'm learning a lot about video production. I have no video experience whatsoever, but just the sole fact that I'm making this, I'm publishing it, I'm producing it, I'm marketing it correctly, I'm building my skill set, I'm building my skills. I'm also building my public speaking skills. So you should try to learn sales, you should try to learn marketing, take a part-time job if you have to, get a job that will teach you these skills. These are going to be beneficial in your entrepreneurial activities. All right, number 7, he talks about you should have an emergency fund set up for unexpected things that can happen. And I touched on this a little bit of having kind of like an investment fund, but you should also just have, maybe 3 to 6 months worth of savings just in case. Actually, Warren Buffett, I was just at the Berkshire Hathaway thing. He talks a lot about building moats, like building a moat around yourself or around your business where nobody can, get through it essentially. And you kind of want to think of that in the same way with like personal finance. You want to build like a fortress basically. And a 3 to 6 month cash reserve savings is probably a pretty good start to that. Okay, number 8, he is big on like taxes and corporations. So once you start making money, I don't think you necessarily need to do this right from the beginning, but once you start making money, you should become very sophisticated with like LLCs and corporations and setting up very beneficial tax structures. You should be meeting with like the top CPAs on how to basically save as much money as possible, protect your assets. There's so many different creative things you can do, once you start talking to a good, knowledgeable CPA and also educating yourself more on that. He says that corporations are like the biggest legal tax loophole that entrepreneurs can use. And it sounds bad, but you shouldn't be paying more than your fair share of taxes. The tax rate in this country is already pretty high, as I'm sure most people are aware. So it's completely fine to set up tax systems that benefit you so you're not overpaying. Okay, number 9, he says, if you want to buy luxuries, you should buy assets first that pay for those luxuries. So let's say you want to get like the brand new Maserati, right? And it's, let's say the lease or the payment is like $1,000 per month. Instead of just spending all your money to get that car, you should purchase some assets or invest some assets that generate $1,000 per month in cash flow that can pay for that car essentially. So it's not to say you can't buy luxuries, but build up your assets first so that they pay for that. And then, ideally you should reinvest those assets into more cash flowing assets. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to buy the car, that's fine too. Okay, number 10, he talks about your team will be important. So when you're building wealth, your team is going to be very important. So that could be like your CPA. I mean, you should be doing a lot of research. You should get referrals from wealthy people about the top CPAs. Maybe you should interview 3 or 4 CPAs and find the best one for you. For real estate, maybe you find the best real estate mentors. Maybe you find the people that are doing the most amount of deals and then you work with them, you pay them. And that goes for anything. You should always do a lot of research, find maybe the top 2 or 3 people, talk with them, get a feel for them, and then make your best pick from there. You want to have the dream team established. You want to have, to build your financial empire, right? To build your business empire. You don't want to just hire the cheapest person or the person you just met yesterday. You really want to vet every single person that you're going to be working with. All right, so thanks for watching this video on 10 things I learned from Robert Kiyosaki. And there's so many other good lessons in his books. I would recommend, his books are fairly quick and easy to read. So like Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad Poor Dad, there's so many others. And he has some very good, very practical ideas on investing that, like I said, most people are not aware of. So definitely check him out and let me know if you have any questions. And please like, please share, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.